Hello and welcome to Emma's ESL English. It's Thursday. Yay! Friday tomorrow. Super yay! I've been reading a lot of books recently. Don't know if you guys have noticed. Partly because I love reading books, but also partly because I don't want you to be scared of reading books. I think a lot of times learners think it's too much, too difficult to read a book in English, which I can totally understand, but that's not true. You can do it. Trust me, you can do it. So today what I wanted to do is give you some reasons why you should read English books and also some tips to make it a little bit easier and hopefully reduce the pressure somewhat. Okay. I know reading isn't everybody's cup of tea. It's the main way that I learn, so I'm a little bit biased. If you really can't be doing with reading, or maybe you have dyslexia, so there's a real hurdle in the way if you're doing some reading, you can listen too. Remember, right? There's Audible, audio books, even YouTube, whatever. You can learn the similar things from those that you can from reading books, so you don't have to read books. I would suggest that you process them in a similar way and look for similar things that I'm going to talk about today, but don't feel like if you can't read books, you're out of an option. However, we're focusing today on reading books. So, reasons why you should read English. Number 1, reading English helps your grammar. Reading means your brain is seeing real-life grammar situations, and that will help it to build those structures when you speak. You've learned loads of grammar at school, right? You spent years learning grammar at school. But my experience of working with those books is the grammar is often out of date. You often get super extreme grammar because you've been learning it for so long, they're running out of stuff to teach you. So sometimes the grammar that you learn in school, especially later in high school, is so complicated that native speakers rarely use it. It does exist, but we don't like it very much because it's hard. And by reading, you can get to see, actually, I'm going to have a big clunk now, my neighbor's coming out. It's gone. Okay, so by reading in English, you can see how those structures actually apply in real life, but also it's getting your brain used to them, and it makes it easier for your brain to use them when you're actually speaking. Because the processing speed of reading is slower than your speaking speed, so you're doing the same thing, you're having to recall things, you're having to understand the grammar, understand the vocabulary, but it's at a slower pace. So it's a bit easier to get your head around. Number 2, more vocabulary. Yay, vocabulary. So when you're reading, you will come across new words, and you'll see words that you know apply differently to how you've seen them used before, and that's going to increase your understanding. So you're going to see vocabulary in different scenarios, you're going to see different kinds of vocabulary, and that's going to increase your vocabulary, but also give you more choices in the future as to how you might go about using those words. Number 3, you will see dialogue written down. Dialogue is the word we use to describe when people are speaking in books. In most books, novels in particular, they have a lot of dialogue. While it can be difficult to catch all of the words in a TV show or a movie, seeing it written down means that you have the time, you can see the familiar patterns, you can see the grammar structures, you can see colloquialisms, and you have the time to process them and even write them down. So you're actually seeing what people say written down, right? So when it comes to you wanting to say something, it's easier because you've seen it written down. You have that sentence in your head. Of course, I'm not expecting you to remember everything, but all it's doing is familiarizing your brain with those structures so that it doesn't feel as weird when you hear it. Number 4, native speakers break the rules all the time. When you learn English in school, it seems rigid, unchangeable. But when you read English, you quickly learn that it's highly flexible and constantly evolving. English in school is all about, right, rules, regulations, what you must do, where you must put the verb. And a lot of the grammar rules are fairly rigid. Fairly. But English is very, very flexible. And think about it, right? English is spoken natively in South Africa, Australia, Canada, New Zealand, America, the UK, Ireland. Not just those places, a whole bunch of other places in the Caribbean and all over the place, right? India. And also, it's spoken internationally in even more places. Hong Kong, Singapore, the Philippines. India is another good example. They're using English in their everyday language, but they might not be using it exactly the same as the native speakers are using it. It might be evolving. They might have different vocabulary. In the Philippines, they mix it up and put a whole bunch of other stuff in there. Same in India. In India, they have a tendency to put English, to drop English into their sentences. So the whole sentence is in Indian, that's very reductive. One of the Indian languages, of which there are, I think, about 3,000. And then they drop in a few English words kind of just for the look of the thing, which is cool. Awesome. Glad you can do that. Fantastic. Why the heck not? But what that means is that when people from India start to use English as an actual working language, they use it a little bit differently to how native speakers use it. So all of this affects English and changes English and evolves English. And if you're reading different kinds of books, you can catch some of these changes, and it may mean that your English is a little bit more, let's say it's a little bit less textbook, which is okay. Next, tips to make it easier. So I totally get that if you are not a native speaker, reading in English is a challenge. Yes, I understand that. So these are some tips to make it easier, I hope. There's now a lot of bugs here, so getting itchy. Number 1, go easy on yourself. You do not need to start with Charles Dickens or J.K. Rowling. You can if you want to, but I wouldn't advise you starting there. Start with kids' books. Start with young adult fiction, chick lit, articles on Engu. Even graphic novels are good. Really, start with something fun, relatively easy, so that you don't just wear yourself out. You don't want to exhaust yourself and lose your motivation before you even start. If you just start with Charles Dickens, you're going to read 2 sentences and be like, oh, I can't do this. For heaven's sake, don't start with Shakespeare. That's not going to help your modern English at all. Start with something really easy and don't feel bad about that. We'll come back to that later. Number 2, don't go overboard. You do not need to read a chapter a day to get your money's worth. 1 page a day, or even half a page, is better than nothing. Read a little, work to understand what you just read, look up any new words that you find, try reading it aloud once. Maybe you read it once in your head and once aloud, however you like, so that you can practice your pronunciation. It's a good opportunity. Check your comprehension. Do you actually understand what you've just read? This is kind of an important point. And if you don't understand, don't panic. Find someone who can help you understand it. Maybe that is yourself breaking it down into all of its different vocabulary pieces or whatever, or maybe it is having a chat with your English partner or even your English teacher to see, what does this mean? What does this mean, and how can I understand it better? That It's totally okay. Ask for help. It's all good. Number 3, don't kill your confidence. If you find it too hard, stop. There is no shame. Put it back on your shelf and choose something easier, and you will get to it eventually. It's not a wasted buy. You will get to the point where you can read that book easily. You're not there yet. That doesn't mean you're never going to get there. That just means you need to start a little bit easier and work up to it. It's really important that you enjoy the reading that you're doing so that it builds your confidence rather than you reading big books and killing your confidence. So take it slow, go at your own pace, and try to pick something that's going to be fun to read. Number 4, last one. Don't compare yourself to others. The most dangerous habit when it comes to learning a language. Bad idea. Remember, everybody learns differently, despite what our schools say. Everybody learns differently. They learn at different speeds. They have different kinds of challenges. That influences our whole learning journey. In addition, everybody has different interests. So the book that you're reading and you think is fascinating, your friend might be bored stiff with it. So do what inspires you. Do what motivates you. And don't worry about what everybody else is doing. It's really quite irrelevant to your journey. Completely. Just do what works for you. And if that means putting the book back on the shelf and going to find an easier book, do that. That is totally acceptable and a good decision for your learning journey. Okay, I hope this has been helpful. You can email me at emmaseslenglish@gmail.com, or you can head over to the blog at emmaseslenglish.com. I caught a few words and phrases that I said today that you might not know. Don't panic, head to the blog, it'll be written down there. And that's it. I'm done. Yeah. Okay, have a great weekend. I will see you next week. Bye.